most heartless thing you've seen someone do? I worked at a memory care facility when I witnessed something that still haunts me. There was this resident, Dorothy, 82 years old with mid-stage Alzheimer's. Every day at 3 p.m., she'd wait by the window, convinced her son Bradley was coming to visit. She'd put on lipstick, fix her hair, and clutch this little photo album she kept hidden under her mattress. Bradley hadn't visited in 2 years, but Dorothy didn't remember that. Every day was the first day of waiting for her. One Tuesday, Bradley actually showed up, not to visit, but with a lawyer and a real estate agent. They needed Dorothy's signature on papers to sell her house. I watched from the hallway as he walked right past the recreation room where his mother sat in her usual chair, wearing her good dress, the photo album in her lap. The administrator called Dorothy to the office. When she saw Bradley, her whole face transformed. "You came! I knew you'd come!" She reached for him, but he stepped back, gesturing to the lawyer to explain the documents. They needed her to sign papers she couldn't possibly understand, using medical terminology about her diminished capacity, while she sat there smiling at her son, asking if he'd like some of the cookies she'd saved from lunch. But here's the part that broke me. Dorothy started showing Bradley the photo album, pictures of him as a baby, at graduation, his wedding. She narrated each photo with perfect clarity. Moments from decades ago, preserved while yesterday vanished. "This is you at the beach. You were scared of the waves, but I held your hand." Bradley wasn't even looking. He was texting on his phone. When she got to a photo of them at Christmas, she started crying. "I'm sorry, I can't remember things anymore. I try so hard. Are you disappointed in me?" Bradley finally looked up, annoyed, and said, "Mom, just sign the papers." She signed everything. 7 documents giving Bradley full control of her assets, including the house she'd lived in for 40 years, the house where she'd raised him alone after his father left, the house she'd mortgaged to pay for his college, the house she always said would be his someday, just not like this. After she signed, Bradley stood to leave immediately. Dorothy grabbed his sleeve. "Will you stay for dinner? They're having meatloaf. You love meatloaf." He pulled away and said he had a meeting. She asked when he'd visit again. He said, "Soon," already walking toward the door. But Dorothy followed him down the hallway, confused, calling out, "Bradley, you forgot to say you love me. You always say you love me." He didn't turn around, just kept walking. She stood there in the doorway, watching his car disappear, then looked at me and asked, "Was that my son?" He seemed upset. I took her back to her room, helped her into bed early because she was exhausted from the excitement. She fell asleep holding the photo album. I looked at the last page, a note in shaky handwriting. "For Bradley, so you remember how much I love you when I can't remember anymore." The next morning, Dorothy was back at the window at 3 p.m., lipstick perfect, waiting for Bradley. She'd forgotten he'd been there, but I couldn't forget the calculation in his eyes as he watched his confused mother sign away everything she'd worked for. 2 months later, I saw the house listed online. The description mentioned vintage charm and perfect for renovation. Bradley had already sold it. The new owners posted pictures of them demolishing Dorothy's garden, the one she'd asked about every day until she stopped remembering she'd had one. Bradley never visited again. When Dorothy passed 8 months later, the facility had to call him 3 times before he answered. He asked if we could handle the arrangements, said he was traveling for business. We found out later he'd used the house money to buy a vacation property in Sedona. At Dorothy's funeral, only the facility staff showed up. I brought the photo album she'd treasured. As I placed it in her casket, I turned to that picture of them at the beach, the one where she was holding his hand. In the photo, she's looking at him with such pure love while he's looking away, distracted by something else. Even then, the administrator told me Dorothy had actually been wealthy once. She'd given everything to Bradley over the years. The house was the last thing she had. She died thinking he visited every day though. The dementia gave her that final mercy.